Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. So there is no formula or checklist that is going to definitively spit you out who's going to be the 2025 Cup champion this season. But that's not going to stop me from trying, because I decided to build my own Cup contender checklist to kind of see what teams are shaping up to look like prior Stanley Cup champions in terms of what the build and what the stats require to be that team that could potentially win the Stanley Cup. So yeah, we're going to go through it. We're going to do the Eastern Conference today. Every single team that still has a chance at the playoffs, I'm going to be looking over. Obviously, going to spend more time on like the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference and the bottom 6 that don't really have a chance. But yeah, we're going to go through it, and I have like a scoring system within the checklist. And here is the checklist in all its beauty. You need one, or you don't need, again, you don't need to go 10 for 10 on this. No team on this is a full 10 for 10. But in terms of a contender, I think most contenders, when looking at the history of the NHL, you need at least one star top 20 forward in the NHL. Even like teams like Vegas, you didn't have a top 10 player, but Eichel and Stone were both top 25, top 20 forwards. And the 2019 Blues still had Ryan O'Reilly, who was like point per game in the Selke winner that year, as well as one of the best goal scorers in Tarasenko. And you need another elite, high elite kind of guy, a top 40 guy. You can't just have one star. You need another guy that can kind of bounce off him. You obviously need some depth within your forward core. You need a legit number 1 defenseman, as well as arguably more importantly, you need that number 2 guy that can handle 22, 23 minutes a night. You look at recent Cup champs, Forsling and then Montour. 2023, you had Pietrangelo and Theodore. Colorado obviously had Makar and Taves, and then McDonough and Hedman for Tampa Bay. And then you need some defenseman depth. I think we could agree on that. A top 15 goalie. Goalie is the one thing where actually, when you look at prior Stanley Cup champions recently, goalie really hasn't been that important, but it's still a good thing to have a top 15 goaltender. You can't rely on an Aiden Hill to come out of nowhere for your team and win you a Stanley Cup. Special teams, it's going to be top 12 special teams, much like the even strength expected goals percentage. They don't have to be top 8. They don't have to be absolutely dominant, but they got to be capable, especially with the even strength expected goals. Outside of the 2018 Washington Capitals, the last 9 Stanley Cup champions have all been top 12. The Washington Capitals actually that year were like 25th. They just had amazing special teams, and again, great goaltending. And experience with this current core. Have you gone on multiple runs? Do your players overall have playoff experience? Or is this kind of your first run? You rarely see teams go on deep runs, win the Stanley Cup in their first or second run. You look at, obviously, Florida had to make the Stanley Cup final the prior year and get dominated by Tampa Bay in 2022, as well as Vegas, multiple conference finals, as well as a Stanley Cup final, Colorado, multiple second round exits. You need experience with your team, and you need chemistry with your team. And how the scoring is going to work, it is going to be, if you easily pass, you're going to see this. I'm going to flash the players that qualify for each. It might be confusing right now, but easily passing is that green check mark. You get 1 point. Up for debate, it's close on either ends, whether or not you're not safely in the range. And then definitively no, if you have the 57th best forward as your best forward, you're not close to having that top 20 guy. You get the red X. You're not close. You get what we're doing. Let's get into it. Let's not waste any time. We're going to start with some of the wildcard teams, the 4 wildcard teams that I don't really think have that much of a chance in terms of contending. Up first, the Detroit Red Wings only have a score of 1 out of 10. Lucas Raymond and Dylan Larkin. I think Raymond can potentially become that top 20 forward, but right now I think we can agree that he's not that. Similarly with Simon Edvinsson and Moritz Seider. Going to continue to get better and might reach that 1-2 combo that you need to win the Stanley Cup. Just not the case right now. Cam Talbot is like a top 13 to 18 goalie in the NHL. You could argue that he's top 15, and Dylan Larkin as well has been in my top 50 for years. I wouldn't say that he's safely a top 40 forward right now, considering he is having a bit of a down year. And the even strength expected goals actually was better than I expected. The special teams have been wonky as hell. 32nd best penalty kill, 3rd power play. Detroit, probably not making the playoffs, probably not going on a Stanley Cup run if they end up doing it. The Montreal Canadiens, slightly better. I really like Nick Suzuki, not a top 20 forward in the NHL. We can agree on that. His second best forward is Cole Caulfield. Fringe, top 40 guy, putting up around 40 goal pace, but I'd probably lean towards no, but I'm still going to give him a half a point there. They do have some good depth forwards, especially with Josh Anderson and Brendan Gallagher have been playing of late, but it's still not like for a contender a good second and third lines. In terms of the defensemen, again, I think Lane Hudson is eventually going to become that legit number one defenseman. Right now, not close to it. Mike Matheson, you could put Caden Gooley here as well. Caden Gooley's not a top 40 defenseman. They both definitively miss. A good 3 to 5 defenseman, you can maybe say it's a toss-up, but again, just compared to other teams we're going to look at, it doesn't really move me. Sam Montembeault, I think, has kind of solidified himself as a top 15 goalie. He's been playing really good down the stretch. Even last year, he only had like a 900 save percentage. This year only has a 900 save percentage, but he's been great analytically. Special teams actually have about middle of the pack special teams. It's not top 12 when you combine the two, but we're somewhat close on that. But again, with the special teams and even strength expected goals percentage, if they're 10th through 14th, I'm going to give them the yellow warning sign, the in-between sign. So just for that going forward. In experience, it's tough because they had the 2021 Stanley Cup run, but that was like their one runs, and it's COVID. Like, it's a little bit different. No fans in the building. On top of the fact that guys like Lane Hudson and Uri Slafkovsky weren't on the team for that. So not no experience, but I think you got to go with half a point there. Definitely. Maybe they could pull off an upset, but I think we can agree not going on some kind of Eastern Conference Stanley Cup run. My New York Islanders check in at 2 out of 10. Yeah, the forwards and the defensemen, not really close. They do have a top 15 goaltender pretty easily in Ilya Sorokin. I gave them 2 red X's, because their special teams are just that bad. An experience. They do have an experience. This core has made the playoffs the last 2 years on top of most of the team right now. We're on that 2020 and 2021 teams. So they do actually have some experience where if they make the playoffs, they know what they're doing once they get there. But yeah, in terms of top-end talent, they're not remotely close. So as a result, they got a pretty low score. And lastly, our last wild card team, wild card hopeful, Columbus Blue Jackets. Outside of Zach Werenski is really nothing special, if we're going to be honest. They do have some good depth forwards that have really emerged. Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, Voronkov. It's been impressive. Chinnikov, Boone Jenner as well. Like, they actually have a sneaky good forward core. But Marchenko, he's a top 50 to 70 player in the NHL, so probably top, what would that be? 35 to 50 forward, not top 20. I've loved what Monahan has done this season. Not a top 20, not a top 40 forward. Merzlikins isn't that good. As a result, they are above the wings, but check in at 10th overall. We get to an actual legit potential threat with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They got the 2 forwards, and William Nylander, in my opinion, is also a top 20 forward. So they're set in terms of forwards. The defense is very, very shaky in terms of the top-end guys. They don't have a true number one defenseman. I keep on talking about this. Morgan Riley, I think, plays the most on that team, but I think he is their 3rd, maybe even 4th best defenseman at this point. I really like Chris Tanev, not a top 12 defenseman. Top 40 defenseman. If they got a legit number one, they'd qualify for the top 40. Jake McCabe, very good player, but again, not a top 40 defenseman. Wool and Stolars, you can make arguments for top 15. It's a top 10. It's the top 10, top 5, probably tandem in the NHL. But come playoff time, come when you have to only play one of them, which I assume they're going to do. I assume they're not going to roll out a tandem in the playoffs. It's fringe. They get half a point. Special teams, as I've mentioned before, if you fall between that 10th through 14th in the NHL, once you combine it, you get the half point. The expected goals are a little bit underwhelming. They were expected goal demons under Sheldon Keefe when Kyle Dubas was the general manager. You can make the argument that didn't translate to playoff success, so maybe you're switching up your overall style of play. But yeah, they do not qualify in terms of that top 12 even strength expected goals percentage. And the experience is tough because they've made the playoffs the last 7 years or 8 years at this point, but they haven't done jack shit. Like, this is playoff experience as well as playoff success with this core. It's not just being in the playoffs. How have you performed in the playoffs? And they have not performed that well, so they get a pretty lackluster 5.5 out of 10. Sticking in Ontario, we have the Ottawa Senators, who could be a threat in the playoffs. It would be their first run. As a result, they have basically no experience across the board. No legit star forward quite yet. I think Stützle is going to develop into that, but right now, not a top 20 forward. Him and Brady Tkachuk are both 28 to 35, in my opinion, in terms of forwards. I think they do have a good overall forward core with guys like Drake Batherson, Claude Giroux, Dylan Cousins, Shane Pinto, Ridley Gregg. They have a very impressive middle 6. Jake Sanderson, much like Tim Stützle, I think is trending to eventually be a green check mark on this. And I think even by next year, he might be a yellow. Thomas Chabot, this might be a biased pick. I think that he's like somewhere between like 37 and 45 in terms of defensemen. Again, I might be inflating Chabot too much. I understand if you have him. He's definitely closer to the red X than the green check mark, but I went with that. I think that they have a pretty good 3-5 defense as long as Nick Jensen's hurt right now, but Jensen, Zub, and then like Clevin. I really like Jensen and Zub in terms of defensemen, right-handed guys. Linus Ullmark, we all agree on that one. He's a no-doubt top 15 goaltender. The special teams are about league average, not quite cup contending. They get an X, and then in terms of the top 12 even strength expected goals percentage, they check in at 19th, which isn't going to be good enough. And as I talked about before, not really any playoff experience. They do play kind of like a physical playoff style of hockey, so I wouldn't love to play them in the first round. But in terms of the embodiment of a contender, not quite there for the Ottawa Senators, unlike potentially the New York Rangers, who I would probably rather not see in the playoffs compared to the Ottawa Senators, just because of this guy right here, mainly Igor Shesterkin. He should be worth like 3 points on this, considering what he's done the last 3 seasons. But yeah, Panarin having a down year, but still probably arguably a top 20 forward in the NHL, 120 points last year. But again, not as good this year. JT Miller has been better in New York, yet again a top 40 forward. They're 3-9 forwards. It depends on how you rate Zibanejad and Kreider. If you think that they've completely fallen off, I understand you putting the red X, and Lafreniere's been cold. Trocheck's a solid player. Adam Fox, people are far out on Adam Fox at this point after the 4 Nations. But I'd like to think that you guys still think that he's a top 12 defenseman in the NHL, given this guy's track record. Keandre Miller, you can maybe make arguments. Last 2 to 3 months, he's been playing pretty good, but I still wouldn't go with like a top 40 defenseman in the NHL. Their 3-5 defense is pretty brutal when looking at the guys that Drury's brought in. Braden Schneider's okay. Vankanainen, Susi. It's really nothing special for the New York Rangers. But again, Igor Shesterkin has been the best playoff goalie the last 3 seasons, so they're horrifying to play. The special teams, power play has been pretty brutal this season, despite all the talent that they have. 25th in the NHL, and the expected goals haven't been good, but they have a lot of experience. 2 Eastern Conference Finals the last 3 seasons, so they get a 5 out of 10. I'd rather, again, this is just the checklist. This doesn't exactly line up with who I'd pick, but I would rather face the Ottawa Senators than like the New York Rangers in the playoffs, in my opinion. And I love Ottawa and hate the New York Rangers. The Florida Panthers, of course, they're going to score pretty well on this checklist. Barkov, top 5 forward, arguably in the NHL, maybe 6. I forget my top 10. But when looking at Matthew Tkachuk as well, he was above a point per game yet again. Just shows up in the playoffs. And also Sam Reinhart. Sam Reinhart would probably qualify for top 20 forwards, as well as Matthew Tkachuk. They're loaded. And they have a disgusting middle 6 in terms of guys like Brad Marchand that's coming back from injury, Sam Bennett, Anton Lundell, Luosterainen, Verhaeghe. Awesome forward core. Gustav Forsling has proven this season that he's probably a top 10 defenseman, definitely a top 12 one. I'm not that high on Aaron Ekblad, and it's not like Seth Jones has been killing it in Florida as of right now, so I think that they do fail in terms of that number 2 defenseman that Montour was last season. 3-5, again, it's Seth Jones, Kulikov, and Mikkola. It doesn't absolutely knock your socks off when looking at contending teams. I'll give him half a point here. Bobrovsky, top 15 goalie, not killing it like last year in the playoffs in regular season, but still a top 15 guy. The special teams, they're just barely, they're on the yellow, considering they're 11th, top 12, 10th through 14th. Get the yellow. Dominant in terms of even strength expected goals percentage. I messed up. Experience, I don't know why I have that there. That should be a green check mark. No shit there. That's my bad. And as a result, Florida's at what? 8 out of 10. Florida's at 8 out of 10. Boom, boom, boom. Moving on. Next up, we have the Washington Capitals. 7 out of 10. They scored pretty well on this. I was surprised. I don't think Ovechkin's a top 20 forward. Dylan Strome, or honestly, you could say PLD, like, arguably are top 40 forwards. It's a debate. It's definitely a debate. Their 3-9 definitely qualifies when looking at PLD, Tom Wilson, Connor McMichael, Ilya Protas, and they have some solid third liners as well. John Carlson's a toss-up. Again, I'd have him in the range of 11 through 15. I can't definitively say he's a top 12 defenseman. I think Chychrun is in that 30-ish range, mid-30s, low 30s in terms of the number 2 defenseman. Got paid today. I think that deal is just like a little bit of an overpayment, like $500,000 to $750,000. Not a horrible deal by any stretch. Go watch my TikTok I made on that. Very good 3-5 defenseman in terms of Sandin, Faravari, Matt Roy. Top Top 15 goaltender, check. Logan Thompson's been top 4 this season. Special teams have been very good, especially the penalty kill. Even strength expected goals percentage just barely makes it, so you got to give him the half a point. And in terms of experience, yes, Carlson, Ovechkin, and Wilson have all won Stanley Cups with the Washington Capitals. The only problem is their current core has only really made the playoffs once in that 2023 season. Or 2024 season. Last year, they didn't make it in 2023. So, like, as a collective, yes, Logan Thompson has playoff experience. Yes, Matt Roy has playoff experience in LA. But, like, as a collective, they haven't been on, like, multiple runs, if that makes sense. PLD just got traded. He has playoff experience, but again, not with this team. So, I think you got to give him the half a point there. It's not like this group is battle-tested and has a shit ton of experience and success together, if that makes sense. I'm not saying they have some experience, and obviously those 3 guys won Stanley Cups, but I think that's a fair placement. That's a fair grade. Carolina, not exactly killing it on the contender checklist when looking at them. Sebastian Aho, in between a top 13 to 23 forward, I'd probably argue. Seth Jarvis, 35 and 35, very good defensively, knocking on that top 40. I can't, like, definitively say it. Their 3 through 9 is again, for contenders, like, okay, nothing really special. It's deep, but Svechnikov is having a bit of a down year. Kakaniemi is their number 2 center. Stan Coven is going to be relied on to play serious minutes. Stahl I like as a third-line center. Who else do they have? Jackson Blake's been effective, but again, it doesn't, like, wow you compared to a Florida Panthers or something like that, or a Washington Capitals. Slavin, top 12 defenseman. He's in that 7 to 10 range for me. Brett Burns, you could put really anybody here, and I think we agree they don't have another top 40 defenseman in the NHL. Good. They have a good 3 through 5, though. Gothisbehere, Walker, Chatfield, Orlov. Definitely check the box there. Top 15 goaltender, similarly to Toronto. These guys are around 13 through 20 individually. If Freddie Anderson is 100% healthy, I can understand you having him top 15, but that's not a guarantee considering his injuries, so I can't quite go there. In the special teams, power play is abysmal. The penalty kill is great, but the power play has been abysmal this season, so as a result, they get an X. And then the top 12 even strength expected goals percentage, they check in at second. They always dominate at 5-on-5 expected goals and Corsi. And the experience is obviously there. This team has mostly been together since 2019 and have seen 2 Eastern Conference Finals and made the playoffs every single season. So they definitely have the experience. Second to last, the New Jersey Devils. Yeah, you can't be too high on them considering Jack Hughes is hurt, considering Dougie Hamilton and Siegenthaler are also hurt. Bratt is a fringe top 20 forward. You can go either way. As a result, gets the yellow. Nico Hischier's a no doubt top 40 forward. Don't have a ton of forward depth. Again, they lose Jack Hughes, and it kind of falls off in terms of the forward, especially, although Timo Meyer's playing better of late. Yeah, I don't think that they really match up in terms of those top, the middle 6 as well as the third forward. The defenseman, Luke Hughes has been great ever since Dougie Hamilton has gone down, but not a top 12 defenseman in the NHL, as well as Brett Pesce kind of being their de facto number 2 right now. Not a top 40 defenseman. The 3 through 5, it's okay, but again, for an actual contender, it's not very good. You got guys like Kovacevic, Brendan Dillon, Brian Dumoulin. Top 15 goalie, though. You got to give him that. The special teams have been pretty impressive in the even strength expected goals percentage, just barely. They're almost in the check mark, but they get the yellow. And experience, they had the 2023 run, but only made the second round. And outside of that, the core pieces don't have like a shit ton of playoff experience in terms of Bratt and Hischier, Hughes. Markstrom obviously does. Pesce does. Meyer a little bit from San Jose, but nothing really overwhelming. And as a result, this core has not proved a ton, so no playoff experience. And then lastly, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning scoring the best on this in terms of the forwards. I think we can agree Point is also a top 20 forward, as well as Gensel and Hagel. Gensel arguably being a top 20 forward, and Hagel and Gensel for sure being top 40 forwards as well. The 3 through 9, as I mentioned, Gensel and Hagel, Sorelli, and especially after acquiring Bjorkstrand and Gord, that really beefs them up and gets them the green check mark. I think they would be in yellow if they didn't have that big deadline. In terms of picking up 2 solid middle sixers, Victor Hedman has reestablished himself after 2 kind of down years defensively. He's back to being a top 10 defenseman. Ryan McDonough has been money this season as well as last year in Nashville. He was damn good as that defensive number 2 that Tampa badly needed, so he checks it off. The 3 through 5 is probably the biggest weakness on this team. I like guys like Chernak. I like guys like Perbix, but it's really nothing special in terms of once you get past Hedman and McDonough. That is probably the biggest weakness on this team at this point. Considering Vasilevsky is money yet again after having that back surgery, question marks. He's put that all to bed. He's a beast yet again. The special teams have been great. The even strength expected goals is a little bit concerning. Again, 14th almost gets them within the range, almost gets them in the top 12. They get to half a point. That could definitely improve. But again, their special teams, also analytically, their special teams have been awesome. And I think their overall all situations expected goals are like 4th or 5th best in the NHL. And they have arguably, at least in the Eastern Conference, the most experience in terms of winning Stanley Cups. They have 2 Stanley Cups, and the team's basically the same, including bringing back Ryan McDonough. So as a result, they check in at number 1 with an 8.5. So yeah, the full order goes Tampa in first at 8.5, the Panthers at 7.5, Capitals at 7, Canes at 6.5, Leafs 5.5, Sneaky Rangers 5, Senators 4, Devils 4, Habs 2.5, Islanders 2, Jackets 1.5, and the Detroit Red Wings with a 1. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this? Again, this isn't saying like I'm for sure going to pick the Washington Capitals to beat the Carolina Hurricanes or the Tampa Bay Lightning to beat the Florida Panthers. Nothing is set in stone. I just thought this would be a fun exercise to look at certain holes, certain things that these teams might have or not have. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you wanted me to do this with the Western Conference. That's the plan right now. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Peace.